Hello and welcome to all secondarites still scratching their heads, unable to decide how to go about finding the perfect intern for yourselves. So today in Pathfinder 4.0, we're going to be covering everything there is to know about non-core interns. So the podcast is primarily divided into three parts. Firstly, we're going to be telling you how to decide if a non-core intern is for you. Secondly, once you decide that you want to venture into the non-core area, how to go about finding the right intern. And thirdly, our panelists are going to be telling you about their first-hand experiences. So, to begin with, let's start with a quick intro of all the panelists. And to make it a little bit more interesting, we're going to be asking them to tell us the honest reason they chose to go for non-core versus the reason they actually tell the other people. So, starting with Saksham.
So hi, I'm Saksham. I'm currently a third year student in textile engineering branch. I interned at PwC India as a business analyst. The reason I chose non-core was because मुझे कपड़े नहीं बनाने थे. Well, I wasn't interested in fabrics, etc. I'm more oriented towards businesses. So yeah, that was my reason.
So hi, this is Saket. I interned at Orangewood Labs, and Orangewood Labs is a YC-backed startup which is into hardware, right? And this is something which I always wanted to do, and my branch is textile.
So hello everyone, this is Rudrakshi. I'm a third year undergraduate at Production and Industrial Engineering, and I interned at Ernst & Young as a business consulting intern. So what do you, Maathangi?
My name is Maathangi and I'm a third year student in mechanical engineering. I interned at Kosh, which is a startup in Gurgaon, and it's also YC backed. I wanted to go for that because I wanted to explore the data science field and also intern in a YC backed startup to get a feel of how it works.
Thank you all for that. Considering there are a lot of options available for online internships, could you share your thoughts on their effectiveness compared to the offline ones? Maathangi?
Yeah, sure. So there are many options available for online internships, and I think they're also a little easier to get as compared to the offline ones. But I would suggest that if you have the option, definitely choose an offline internship, mainly because it gives you a wider learning experience. It gives you an idea as to how office environments work, how you deal with people, your bosses, your colleagues, other interns, etc. It also gives you a sense of time management because going to and from the office would be very hectic, and that is what you would be forced to do in your third year internships and your placements as well. So even though there are many online opportunities, I'd suggest you go for the offline ones.
That's great. Rudrakshi and Saksham, could you highlight some essential skills that served you well during the non-core placement process?
Okay. So first of all, when we are in your second year, you don't have a lot of things on your CV, and you might be very confused like what to use for your CV and what not to use. So I feel that for second year, they don't expect you to know a lot about the things that they are doing. They just want an overall profile. Like you be involved in, let's say you have a decent CGPA, then you have some involvement in different clubs. Usually people in second year don't have any internships, so they don't expect you to having done an internship before. And further, they expect you to just show an overall profile. That's it. And after that, since my intern was in consulting, so they don't have any particular thing. Like usually in third year interviews, they ask cases. But for me, my interview was very generic. So they asked me about myself, what I'm interested in, what exactly is going on, and what are my plans. So I would say that it's not particular skill that they are looking for, but your overall personality when you go for such interns.
I think Rudrakshi has done a pretty good job in painting the picture very well before you. But a couple of points that I'd like to add. As she said, you are probably in your first year and second year, right? You just ventured into your higher education. So these companies, or let's say startups, they don't necessarily expect you to have a certain skill set, right? So what you've got to show them is that you're a quick learner. You are really very interested in what they do. You've got the perseverance to ask them different questions, ask them what actually is happening. As far as CV is considered, I think you've got to write whatever you've done, and you've got to show from your CV that you are a quick learner, you want to explore different things, and you can excel at whatever you do. So be it like you don't have an internship, you don't have a prior experience, that's fine. Just show them that you've done something which has yielded very good results per se. Apart from that, another thing I think which is very helpful is just reaching out to people, right? I remember when I was in my first year, I was pretty scared. Like, how can I text someone and like, why would they reply to me? Taking out time. But that's not the case usually. People do reply to you if you frame good messages. That doesn't mean you'll just say, okay, give me an intern. You have to frame it well, and you have to show interest in their work. And I think that's the way forward.
So, Saket, can you elaborate on the different types of non-code profiles available, and what made you choose the profile you pursued?
Sure. I think it can be broadly classified into 4 profiles, right? The first is VC, second is maybe product, third can be supply chain, and fourth can be startups, right? And about my internship was in product development, right? So, I like to solve problems and, develop a product from start to end. So I liked what I built, right? And I like to build things. I always wanted to work in hardware. So that's where Orangewood came, and that's where I wanted to intern. Right?
All right, thanks for that. So moving on to the second section of our podcast, which is once you decide that non-core interns are the right interns for you, how do you go about finding one? So the most natural question that comes now is what are the various means by which you can look for a non-core intern? So the most common ones we've heard about are cold mailing, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, opportunities that come up on sources such as ITD notices. But we'd like our panelists to emphasize and elaborate on those. Saksham, could you take this one?
Yeah, cool. So I think Advik has done a pretty well job. Like, I think there are, as per my experience, there are particularly 4 or 5 areas through which you can get an internship, right? The first one is cold mailing and LinkedIn, right? So these are pretty much, I think the name justifies that you literally mail people, right? You get mail IDs from LinkedIn and then you mail people, or you directly message them on LinkedIn that you'd like to do an internship. So how it's like, if you're doing something on LinkedIn, I would recommend you to first connect with that person, showing that you're interested in what that person does for a living, and then ask him, inquire about what he does, and then ask him for an internship offer. Same with cold mailing. In cold mailing, you can be direct. Like, I am this. You can introduce yourself with a cover letter and your CV, and then you can ask for an offer, right? Secondly, you can apply through a lot of company openings. Like, for example, JP Morgan and these sort of companies, they list jobs on their websites. So you can target some companies or startups and keep regularly checking their websites for some openings, right? Now, LinkedIn has also introduced another feature, which is that you can directly apply through, LinkedIn profiles. That company lists their openings and you can apply directly through that. That is something which got me an internship myself. I had applied through one of these LinkedIn openings. So I think that is something that you could really look at to convert an internship, right? I think Rudrakshi can elaborate more on that now.
Yeah, so basically even for me, I had applied on different portals as well, as you mentioned, like EY portal and PwC portal as well. But from my experience, I got a quicker reply on the LinkedIn messages that I had sent. So that is the thing that got me my internship. So messaging on LinkedIn. So you send a connection request first and you frame a good message with it. You don't just randomly send a request saying, I want to connect. You send a brief introduction about yourself and what exactly you want to connect for. So that the person, whenever they receive multiple requests, so whenever they see that you have sent a personalized request, they are more accepting to your request. So that is one thing that I would say regarding LinkedIn. And then again, as Saksham mentioned, they already have all the profiles that you can apply to on their LinkedIn portal, as well as cold mailing also works if you have the right contacts. But sometimes it can lead to wastage of efforts in the way, let's say you don't have proper mails of people and it could be difficult to find them. So there are also online directories available which you can buy online, but usually nobody does that in your second year. But that is where you get the proper mails of the contacts of the company people.
One thing I would like to add is about Y Combinator. So, Y Combinator has actually a directory of all the startups that it has backed. So you can always go on their website and you can see the jobs posted there or various companies, and you can apply filters which of them are from India, and you can apply them, right? So yeah.
Right. So another thing that I'd like to add is you can use your network very effectively. So a lot of people, like I have 2-3 friends who have used their network and have gotten an intern. By network, I mean your parents might have friends in some companies who might be able to refer your CV, right? That is also a way which is sometimes looked down upon, But if you're not able to score an internship, you can go ahead with that as well. Because at the end, what matters is your experience and the growth that you get out of a company, right? Secondly, you can also have your own network, right? We are very privileged to be in an institution like IIT Delhi, where we have a lot of ministers, a lot of CEOs and C-suite coming in, right? So in a lot of events, let's say, so I was a BSW rep, I volunteered in Inventive, right? So in that I met, I think regional head of Maruti Suzuki. I had a conversation with him. Like he needed some help, I helped him out, and he gave me his visiting card in return, saying keep in touch. So those kind of connections, you can also leverage those kind of connections in various fests or various events that come across. So yeah.
Cool. So a quick follow-up to this. When you talked about LinkedIn, now if someone like me, a second year right, decides that he wants to approach people through LinkedIn, and he decides the company that he wants to work at. Now, when he goes to that company's page, what exactly is the next step? I mean, you gave us an overview of the process, but what exactly does the process entail stepwise? So, who does he exactly look for? What kind of person does he look for at the company's page?
Okay. So basically, I would say that don't be very company specific in your second year. Make sure about the role you want to go for. And have some options and some backups as well. Don't say कि मुझे बस इसी company में intern करनी है and किसी और में तो I'll not do an intern. So that is not the way to go forward with it. So you find out the companies that you're interested in and make a list of them. And what you do now is you can maintain a spreadsheet if you want to be more organized in that way. And what you do is you search on LinkedIn the name of the company and the HRs. So you can search the HRs, the partners. It depends on whatever level you're trying to reach out. So mostly the HRs, because they are in touch with whatever hiring is going on. So you search the company name, then the HR names, and it usually helps to search IIT Delhi along with it. So LinkedIn has filters. So what happens is you would have mutual connections with them. So that would show the most relevant people who you would be able to connect to as soon. So there would be your second as compared to the third as the LinkedIn connections show. So that is how you can go forward and connect with people on LinkedIn for different internships. And again, write a message. And even if you're not sure whether you want to apply in that company, you can always reach out to people and ask. And don't feel shy from asking whether some opportunity is for you. It's also about you accessing and seeing whether that is for you, as well as them seeing whether you are for them. So it goes both ways.
Cool. Thanks a lot for
So
that.
I'd like to add a little bit here.
Sure.
So when it comes to startups, especially, they've got very few employees. They don't have a lot of employees, right? So once you open the LinkedIn page of a startup, you go to the employee section. And especially for YC startups, more often than not, you will find some IIT alumni there. So you just search IIT, then you can find IIT Kharagpur, Kanpur, Delhi, whatever, and they tend to have a lot of affinity for their juniors, right? So from what I've searched, I think those IIT alumni help more than HRs, because HRs just look for certain specific openings and they mostly do not look for interns as such, they just look for employees, right? So these IIT alumni are who will help you the most. So just try to search for them in many companies, in big companies, startups, whatever. So I think that will give you a much bigger boost.
An IIT alumni in any role whatsoever, not really in the most relevant role.
Yeah, I think they will just refer you to other openings if
Sure.
they find value in your application.
Fair.
Referrals are another way to go forward with it. You can reach out to any senior in that company.
Absolutely. And your network is your net worth, essentially. Be it the very typical LinkedIn saying, right? So you can work on enhancing that as well.
Alright, so a quick question again. Personally, I know a lot of people who are struggling between deciding whether to go for core or non-core. In the intro, I had asked you a question about how you decided whether you wanted to go into non-core or core. I think there is more to say on that. Would you like to elaborate? Any panelist?
I think Saket can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead about this. So I think my strategy was pretty simple, right? You have 4 years here at engineering, right? You can divide those into eight segments of 6 months each, and I think you should try all of your interests. In 6 months you can try maybe a startup or corporate intern. In another 6 months you can try product intern. In another 6 months you can try policy intern, right? I mean, the frequency at which you can just switch in a quick here it is very easy as compared to when you would be in your corporate life after graduating, right? So I would recommend you to sit down, get a list what all excites you, what do you want to actually do, and then you can just decide and surf the web around companies or startups in that space, and you can just try applying those by the methods obviously we have discussed.
Would anyone of you like to add something to it?
Yeah, sure. So I would like to add, personally for me, I was not sure which field I wanted to pursue. So I was very confused up until my second year, which field to go into. So I wanted to explore basically. So I thought of different roles that I would be interested in, and I listed down all the possible opportunities. So I also had an intern in a startup in my winter vacations before. So I had already interned in a startup, so now I thought let's have an experience of a corporate internship. That's why I applied for such internships of consulting, so that I explored the domain of consulting, because you might have also heard consulting being a thing that is followed by a lot of people, but you don't know what exactly consulting entails. So before my third year internship, I wanted to explore whether consulting is for me or not. So that is why I had chosen this intern. And it is not like I had left analytics or I've just closed the option of the other things. I had also taken data structures and algorithms before, and also prepared for quant during my vacation. So I had an overall, preparation and seeing whatever different interests that I have. And later on, I jotted down whatever I was interested in and further went with my third year internship.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
I'd like to add one more point here.
Sure.
So as Saket said, I think this is the time to explore as much as you possibly can. In fact, this second year internship of mine was my third internship. I interned with a VC firm, I interned with another startup in strategy, and this was in data analytics, and I was also doing the JPMC finance program, and now I'm doing consulting next year. So I think this is the best way to explore as much as you possibly can. And it's totally fine if you don't know what to go for. I'd suggest apply everywhere. Apply for research internships, apply for corporate, core, etc. And once you start getting offers, once you start getting positive replies, then you can sit and brainstorm as to what actually sounds better for you. So I think now is not really the time for you to be concerned about what you're interested in. I think you'll figure it out with time.
Yeah, but I would also say not to go into a lot of things as well, because that would also make you very confused and that would not give you results, because you would also have a limited time in which you would have to focus your efforts positively. So I would say you short down 2 or 3 things that you want to do and then plan it in such a way that you go forward with those, because there's something that we know ourselves that ये तो नहीं ही करना है. So don't waste time on that thinking कि वो तो कोई कर रहा है कोई तो मुझे भी तो ये एक बार देख लेना चाहिए. So when you know yourself, just go for you. Don't think कि दूसरे इंसान ने इसमें इंटर्न करी है, उसने रिसर्च इंटर्न करी है तो मुझे भी रिसर्च ही करनी है, किसी ने ये करा है तो मुझे वही करना है. So just think whatever works well for you and go forward with that, and have 2 or 3 options, but don't have so many multiple options as well, so that you're not able to do anything.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for that. So considering we're in second year and we do not have much to write on our resume, so what according to you are the must-haves on our resume?
So would anybody like to take that question?
I think, as I had mentioned earlier, I think we've touched upon that topic. So resume per se, I think you entering your second year intern, your resume, if I have to quantify it in a way, your resume and your interest that you show, the way that you reach out to people, that is 50-50, right? So you also have to work upon how you are reaching out to people. As far as resume is concerned, you can write each and everything that you might have done, right? So like I am a part of Enactus. So I wrote a couple of projects that I had done, right? Which I think really helped me to build that business acumen as well, and which was very directly which impressed the other corporate people who were hiring as well, right? Secondly, you can write about the clubs that you've been associated with. You can write about the work that you've done in fests, right? You can write about any sort of projects or any sort of assignments, right? Like I did a course on microeconomics, and I had a very good assignment there, which it was a very interesting assignment which delved deep into how people are spending their money on credit limits, right? So I wrote that, and I think I got a great response. So it's anything that you've done, you can write it in your resume, right? And it's just resume is just something, is a sheet of paper which tells what you've done. So anything that you've done, you can write in it. There's no, I think, set criteria per se, at least in your second year.
Yeah, I totally agree to that because you don't have particular profiles as you have in third year as compared to in second year. And I would also like to add, the presentation of resume is very important because the person seeing the resume has so many resumes to shortlist. So the presentation plays a very important role in you being shortlisted for something. So your resume should be very easily readable, and whatever points you want to highlight should be easily highlighted. It shouldn't be like कि मैंने कुछ भी लिख दिया है but बस भरने के लिए मैंने कुछ भी डाल दिया है. It should make sense to some extent, and it should be written in a language that is easily understandable, and proper bolded words and letters होने चाहिए. And for me, as Saksham mentioned, he had different PORs. I also had different PORs, and along with that, I also mentioned my Dutch, like my COL 106 courses. So, sorry, not courses, projects. So I had mentioned all those projects as well, along with my that. So it was a generic CV that I had made for my second year that I had sent both to the startup as well as, the corporate interns. So it had data structures and algorithm course projects, then core projects as well. So it had overall things that I had done in my second year. It wasn't specific to, let's say, coding, or let's say it wasn't specific to consulting. It had all the things that I had done in my second year, and that showed whatever I was doing then.
Yeah, and there are a few very basic rules in making a CV. Don't go for some very fancy, colorful template. Ensure that there are no grammatical or punctuation or spelling mistakes, because that's a very, very bad impression about you. Ensure that if you start a line, you take it till the end of it, that your CV looks a little bit complete, it shouldn't look blank. Don't ensure that it doesn't go over one page. Don't give like 2-3 page SOPs. So these are just very, very basic rules. It should look a little formal, a little more official, so to speak.
So a short follow-up question to that. So like when we're texting people on LinkedIn, so is there a certain way our LinkedIn page should look like?
I think you've got to make sure that a lot of pages that I see of my friends as well and people at IIT, a lot of things are incomplete, right? People do end up adding their experiences like PORs, etc. to their work experience tab, but they do not write it properly. They do not nest it well, right? So I think there are 3-4 main sections. The first one is about yourself. I think that is a very underrated part of a LinkedIn profile, because that not only gives the other person a perspective into what do you think like and what actually give a perspective into your life. It's more about the commitment, because I was talking to my manager once and he gave me this, that you as freshers, when you're coming out of job, it's all about the attention to detail, right? So it shows that when you have completed your profile in whole, that you've given your email IDs, you've given your contact numbers, you've filled all those fields that you might laze about ki nahi yaar isse to kya hi farak padta hai. That attention to detail is very important. So filling your about us part, right, about yourself, then writing your PORs, nesting them well, writing about what you did, like how does, let's say, I think Saket did an internship in a startup, right? So, and Saket might have posted that alumni relations ka he was, let's say, an executive. So how would the other guy know what exactly did Saket do in an alumni relations ki POR, right? So you can write 2-3 lines about that so the other person gets a good perspective, right? The other good thing that you can do is, with every experience that you add in your LinkedIn profile, you can add the tags, right? Once you add an experience, there are certain set of tags, like what exactly did you do in this internship. So let's say if I did a research intern in like macroeconomics, so I could have added tags like data analysis, SQL, these kind of things, because I actually use that. So what happens is, whenever a recruiter is searching for something, let's say I am from XYZ company, right? I want to search data analyst interns. So I'll just type in data analyst. And if you have that tag in your LinkedIn profile, you'll just directly come onto my search above millions of other people who might have had the similar experience, right? So I think those tags and nesting those experiences well is something that is very important.
And also when you text someone on LinkedIn, the first thing they do is click on your profile to see who you are. right? So ensure that it is very impressive. Again, don't make spelling mistakes here either. Ensure that you have a proper formal display profile. I mean, these small things actually go a long way in ensuring that you get what you want, which is a positive reply.
Exactly. Don't wear funky hoodies and like click a picture for style. That Instagram is different, LinkedIn is different, right? So a pretty formal thing, a very formal profile photo, as Maathangi mentioned, along with I think it's called a cover picture, the one that comes. Don't leave it blank. It looks very bad. Trust me. I have had conversations and I've had interviews where people ask me, why haven't you put in something? So it's very underrated, but complete your profile to as much as extent as you can.
Like just put something out.
IIT Delhi ki photo dal do, legit. That does wonders, I'm telling you.
Absolutely, that's a lot of great advice. So moving on, were there some specific strategies or skills that really helped you in non-core interviews or in your non-core work experience?
I will take this question, right? Sure. So, getting to the interview is the second step, right? So, when you go to an interview, they have your resume, obviously. So, obviously, don't try to fake anything on your resume, right? And even if you try to, put that something which is in gray area, try that you can defend that to the core or whatever you are writing, right? Secondly, when you mention your projects, I think you must have done them and be elaborate and be specific how those projects would help you actually in the work in which you are applying for the internship, right? And that's about it.
Thank you.
So when do you recommend we start looking for our non-core internships? Like, do we have to follow a specific timeline or are we too late?
I think you should have started by now. But actually, I started very late. Initially, my plan was to just chill in the summer and just take a break because I was very stressed out by then.
After 3 interns.
Yeah. So after 2 weeks into the summer, I realized that I was too bored and I had nothing to do. So it was then that I actually started reaching out on LinkedIn. And I was pretty frantic actually. Like what Saket said, I looked at the YC directory. I reached out to every startup in India. I think that was backed by YC. So after this very intense spamming, I received a few positive replies. So I think even if you get late by mistake, it shouldn't be a problem. But if you're watching this video, please start as soon as you can.
Yeah, even for me, I started in the beginning of May applying for, internships. So it's not like you can't get an intern, but that is not, I would suggest like you should look from the beginning as well. But even if you're starting now, you can go whenever you start. So it is like, जितनी जल्दी स्टार्ट कर सकते हो कर लो. ऐसे मत सोचो कि अरे अब तो सब बोल रहे सबकी तो इंटर्न लग गई है, मेरी तो इंटर्न ही नहीं लगने वाली है. ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है. जब मन करे स्टार्ट कर लो. कभी कभार थोड़ा सा हो जाता है कि थोड़ा सा लेट, मतलब कि छोटी इंटर्न भी ले सकते हैं. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने सोचा कि अब मेरे 2 महीने में से एक तो खत्म हो गया है, अब मैंने तो कहीं इंटर्न नहीं करी है, तो यू कैन आस्क फॉर 1 month interns as well. So like Maathangi had a 1 month intern because she wanted to take 1 month interns. So you can do that as well if you are interested.
And I think there is no good time per se कि इस time पे start कर दो. I think I started on the second last day of majors and मैंने last वाला majors बिगाड़ दिया था because apparently one of my friend came and said मेरी intern लग गई and that's why I had that FOMO वाली feeling. So that's when I started. But I think it's you should start as soon as you can, but I think it's very important to not follow the herd mentality. Like your friend is doing some intern, that's not the reason that you should do intern in the same field as well. So first figure out why you want to get an intern, in what field you want to get an intern, and then go ahead with it, right? You can get, like I got I think it took me 4 to 5 weeks to get an intern, and like half of my summer vacations were over till I went on my first day, right? The day of joining. So I think that's pretty much fine until you are sure that you want to do something of that sort.
Yeah.
A very underrated advice on this would be ask out your seniors, right? So you can always go to your seniors, as Saksham has already mentioned. There's nothing to hesitate about, right? So just go to your senior and whether it may be a senior from your club or from your hostel, and just say to them that I wanted to intern about in this field or in this particular company? Do you know someone? Even if they, they themselves have not have intern in that company, they can always refer their friends and all, right? And this goes a long way. I mean, when you have a direct connect in the company, the recruiters also know that, I mean, no one would refer if you are a dumb candidate, right? So they also know that, this is coming from somewhere, from someone who has credibility, right? And they take you seriously. And yeah, then I've observed this, that, the response rate is quite good if you, get through a referral and then give an interview.
And also, as Saksham said, even though there is no timeline for you to like start applying, I feel like the number of options you have decreases as time passes, So when I started, I realized that I effectively had only 2 options with me. One was a startup and one was IIM. And of course, compared to like foreign, research internships or some other options, these did not seem as attractive, but I did not have any other option, right? So the earlier you start, definitely the better it is. So.
Yeah, even I would like to add about the herd mentality part of it. So it does not matter whether your friend is doing 3, 4 interns or whether you're doing 1 intern. It matters of what work you've done in that intern and how relevant it is to the profile you're going into. So even if you have 1 intern, which is like you've done awesome work in that, you have a project which is relevant and that is the profile you want to go into, that would be more relevant than the 4 interns that you have done. You would not be able to write those 4 interns in a resume because resume has to be balanced. So for each resume you would have to take out the different interns that you want to do. So please do the interns you are interested in and don't go by what somebody else is doing or what sector you want to go in and not by your friend's sector.
A very interesting thing which I've just realized is right now it is the best time to, if you want to intern in, certain sectors or certain fields, you can always have IITD professors who are, working on that project or, they are writing some research paper on those particular topics. So you just need to, make sure that you make all the professors aware that you are available if there's any such opportunity. And then obviously these projects would obviously help you in your resume and your internship, right?
One more thing, as Saket mentioned professors. So I think there was a question on CV. So what you can do to boost to give it a huge boost is get letters of recommendations, right? Be it from your professors or be it from someone who has done something in life. But you have to work under it. You can't like, Papa se le leta hu, ek letter. So that doesn't work that way. But yeah, you can have it from professors. And if you've done good work in an intern, right? Make sure you ask your manager or any person who is in a good position, right, for a letter of recommendation, because that goes a long way in building your credibility as a serious person, as a person who has an ability to create an impact and getting further interns or job offers down the line.
Thank you. I'm sure all of those inputs were very, very helpful. Glad to know it's never too late, but jitna jaldi karo utna acha hai. One more thing I wanted to point out, when you said that you can do multiple interns or you could, do shorter interns, as far as I know, I think there are certain rules that OCS has or the placement cell has regarding internships, that there should be a minimum period for those internships and you can't do 2 internships simultaneously. Would you like to elaborate on that or give more clarity on that?
So basically the rule is that you cannot do overlapping interns.
Yeah.
So the 2 interns cannot overlap, neither can it overlap with your semester. So the interns need to be in this summer vacation or the winter vacation that you have. So there are also sem-long internships, but you take, you inform it for पहले से ही, and जो 40 days वाला होता है, so that is for design credits.
Achha.
So you can do short interns, but you won't get design credits for that. And if you're hoping for design credits, you need 40 days of working days for that. So that is the difference. So you can't do overlapping interns for sure. You can't even do overlapping Sura and an intern.
Alright.
So you need to choose which one you want to do. So multiple interns was basically like you do one in the winter, like for the first year people.
Yeah.
You do one in the winter, you want to do one in the summer, because you have even some people even do in the first year summer. Okay, so it's written in the courses of study that you cannot do internships before the second year. So what it means is you cannot have design credits for it.
Okay.
So it won't be officially, the internship you get design credits for. You can write it in your experience if you have proper the proper documents that you have. So that is that. So you can't have overlapping at all.
cool. काफी clarity मिली इससे.
I think it's a very good practice कि एक बार documentation पढ़ लो OCS की जाके. Probably after this video, it's like on OCS site you get a document stating the rules. I think it's very important, and if you don't understand a rule, clarify, because guys, trust me, you don't want to mess with OCS. Okay? So just, I think a lot of those things that we'll tell you, you'll be better off reading it in first person.
Yeah, we'll put this link in the description.
So, sure, we'll absolutely do that. Now, moving on, काफ़ी ज़्यादा important question, जो काफ़ी लोग को होता है. How do you decide whether to do a startup intern or an intern in an established corporate? And what are the various things that you need to keep in mind when you go for a startup intern? Which kind of startup to look for? And I've often heard that startups there's no tangible work experience. Like you don't get a lot of work, or there's a lot of myths surrounding this. Could you please give some clarity on that? Maathangi, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure, I'll take this up. So I know a lot of people feel like you do grunt work in startups, or maybe even in corporates, you're given like sort of low-lying jobs, so to speak. And number one, I was lucky in this regard to get a really good internship. Number two, even if you do have to do grunt work, I think it'll teach you a lot about how you deal with people, how you deal with such sort of situations, how you manage your time, how you interact with people, and how you sort of wiggle your way out of the situation, right? So I think even then you would have a lot to learn. So let this not sort of be a barrier as to your applications. Number one. Number two, I think you also asked about startups versus corporates. I think.
Yeah.
So I think the job description as such does not really vary much. Right? So if you want to go in the strategy role, you can approach either EY, PwC, or you can approach YC startups and others as well. So I think I approached all of them, and this person replied the fastest, obviously. But in startup is a very small team, as I had mentioned, right? So you get to know the founders personally, you get to talk to everyone, you know most of the employees in the company. So it's a काफी close-knit community of sorts. You get to learn a lot, I think. Mainly because you'll have, chai conversations with the founder. He'll tell you how he founded the company. And I think you learn a lot basically by the end of it, right? I think you should just apply everywhere, see where it goes.
So there are two aspects to this. Firstly, what looks better on your CV, and secondly, what kind of experience you have in either, and what are the various skills you derive from that. So you talked about the second aspect. In the first aspect, what exactly does look better on your CV? या फिर ऐसा होता है कि it's just the skills that you can portray or the skills that you achieve from that?
Well, honestly, it depends on how you write it in your CV, right?
Cool.
So companies like Bain, BCG, McKinsey, they definitely like to see big names on your CV. So if you have EY, if you have PwC, if you have like tangible projects under them, it's definitely a plus. And many people think that this is a lot better than startups, and it is definitely better, but it depends on how you project your startup experience as well. If you say that you've worked in a YC-backed startup and you've brought some tangible impact to their growth, right, then I think it is definitely a big plus on your CV. For example, I had worked with SQL, I had improved some role ratios and some technical stuff, I don't remember now.
Not a good sign.
Yeah, but it depends on how you portray that. So I think that matters a lot more. CV writing is a separate skill. I think you should learn that next year.
And you'll get to learn that. IIT journey will make sure you learn it, right?
Not next year, this year. You have your interns in August.
Yeah, this year. So I think that shouldn't be your primary concern as of now.
Alright, any panelist has anything to add?
I would say the learning curve is very exponential in the startup space, right? Obviously, because you work with the founders on a daily basis, right? So one interesting thing which I worked upon was my startup was raising a funding round in the period of April and May when I joined, right? So I got to know about the intricacies and the small processes which go on in funding startups, right? So what are the term sheets, what are the due diligences you need to follow, and all of things. So I would say a lean team probably exposes you more to people, team, and their backgrounds, and there's interesting stories obviously when you work with the founders.
Okay. Okay, so a very important questions we all have in our minds. How did you manage your OCS internship preparation along with the demand of the internship?
Okay, honestly, it was a pretty difficult time for me because my second year internship was in Gurgaon and I used to go from home. So, a 1.5 hour travel to and fro. And I used to come back and I used to prepare for coding internships as well as consulting internships, right? Because I wasn't sure whether I'd actually get into MBB. So I had to do DSA on the side because there are more roles which open for DSA than for consulting. So it is very hectic and I don't think you have much of a choice but to actually deal with it. But it's just a 1 or 2 month exercise and it's very fruitful at the end of it. So even though you would be very tired and it will be very hectic for you, I think it does make sense to pursue all of this at the same time. So anyone else would like to add on?
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you. So, moving on, moving to the third section and the last section of our podcast. That is where our panelists will be giving us and will be telling us about their experiences firsthand. So, all right. So, the most basic question: how was your intern experience? As simple as that. And was it more oriented towards grunt work, or did you actually get to learn a lot of stuff? Did you actually build some skills?
Yeah, I'll take that question, right? So, grunt work is obviously involved, right? You don't get to pick your work or cherry pick good work work you would want to do by yourself, right? There's obviously some degree of grunt work involved, but obviously you can ask your managers or your team leaders to give you work that you wanted always to do, right? And speaking about my experience, when I got into a team and the second day I was, shortlisting resumes for another hiring process or drives that we were doing, right? So this is the scene with the startups. That's why I think lean team helps you a lot. I mean, you do a lot of things on your own. And I also, because of my curiosity, I took a project and, I was leading from start to end in that project, right? And if you have certain things in mind, I think you should speak to your managers or your team leaders and they'll surely help you out.
Just one last thing to add here.
Sure. Take your time.
Sorry, I forgot क्या बोलना था.
Take your time. It's fine.
Right. So another thing about startups that I just remembered, I was recruited for a tech role. My interview consisted of coding questions and math puzzles and all. But on my first day at the internship, I was asked whether I want to switch to a management role. Right. So this happens only in startups where you get to look at both parts of it, where you get to choose what you really want to do. So I think in that aspect, I was really lucky to have a very good internship experience. And the work I did was not grunt work, I'd say. I was working on identifying negative loan profiles, using SQL and pivot tables to identify these. So I think it was काफी technical work. I learned a lot about the finance industry, about how loans are given, about credits. I learned about how to work on Excel and SQL because I didn't even have this much knowledge when I joined the internship. So I think I had a very good time in my second year internship.
Cool. So moving on.
So moving on, I would like to ask: should we actually consider non-paid internships?
I think I'll take that up. I think you should ask for some stipend. Just not because कि तुम कर रहे हो, it's because there are two cases, right? Corporates and startups, right? Usually if you're going into a good corporate firm, they'll offer you a stipend, be it 4-5 हज़ार देंगे, but देंगे कुछ, ठीक है? For startups, I think I learned this from a very good senior who is venturing into startups now. So he told me कि if you ask for money from startups, they'll ensure that you're doing some work, ठीक है? They'll make sure कि they are getting that intellect out of you and you're not just doing grunt work. So I think it's very important. Don't look at the the amount that is internship you're getting from, but if you can try to get some meager amount, be it 5,000 6,000 also. But in corporates you usually get a good stipend. Mine was 20,000. I think Rudrakshi ka bhi somewhere around that number. So I think you should ask for a stipend. If not a stipend, to research internship if you're going to that place, you can ask for relaxes in your tickets vagera.
So I would also like to say that is one point of view, but the other point of view is also that, let's say you have an intern and that is an unpaid intern, but you think that is going to add a lot to you and give you a lot of skills. So I would say that if you don't have any another opportunity, that would be better than that. So don't just regret it, like reject it on the basis कि इसमें stipend नहीं है तो मैं नहीं करूँगी या नहीं करूँगा, and just for the like 10,000 rupees मैं कोई और कर लूँगा जिसमें experience ज़्यादा अच्छा नहीं मिले. So I would say that just balance it out and see what is good for your future. Because right now 5 or 6,000 won't matter as much as your future profile would matter. So that would also be there, and as Saksham mentioned, whenever there are stakes involved, people would want you to work more. So that is also another perspective of that. But just don't leave out opportunities thinking that इसमें stipend नहीं है तो नहीं करेंगे.
There's no binary answer to this.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
evaluate everything.
Evaluate.
Yeah.
Fair.
Usually, you see in policy internships, you don't get stipends, right? But the kind of experiences it adds to your CV, or so to say, to your intellect or to your thinking, is great if you want to pursue masters in policy, or if you want to work with government, or even if you are aiming for UPSC, right? So I would say just personalize those experiences and just go about in your own way. There's no specific answer for this.
So moving on to the final question of the session, there are a lot of people who are not completely clear about which role they want to go for in their OCS internship. So what if you want to switch your role from, say you apply for a non-core internship right now, but in your OCS internship you want to apply for a quant role or a tech role or an analytics role. So does doing a non-core intern put you at a significant disadvantage there? Do our panelists have anything to say about that?
Okay, so I can start with that. So basically, I had a corporate intern in EY and a startup intern at CF, which is a IIT Delhi alumni startup. So I also applied for my core, which is industrial production engineering companies. I was shortlisted in ITC HUL as well, and as well as I also had those companies of data analyst and quant. So I was shortlisted there as well. So the internship of EY also helped me there. So it wasn't like I only had to do those kind of interns to get shortlisted there. Obviously, my CV had other things as well, the projects that were relevant to those profiles, as well as academics and all. But it's when doing something is better than doing nothing. So a person who has, let's say, an intern at a corporate versus a person who does not have any experience. So even if he's going for a quant or an analytics intern, it would be better to have an internship because you have some knowledge about what's going on in an internship, and you have basic knowledge of कि intern कैसे start होती है, क्या चल रहा होता है, who are the people who are involved. So that would always add value to your CV.
Cool. Anyone else has anything to add? Alright, so with that we'd like to end this session. We really hope that you guys took something away from the session, something valuable, and they are always there to guide you personally. So thank you for joining in. Any final comments?
All the best for your internships, and
Don't stress about it too much. It's just a phase.
yeah.